Revelation is the third and final route of Fire Emblem Fates, designed as a golden route, where the protagonist unites both Nor and Hoshido to fight against a true greater threat. It is notable for having an extremely large cast size and gimmicky maps that everyone loves to hate, not to mention a comically poor story that everyone loves to clown on. I'll be playing on Lunatic difficulty with an Iron Man challenge, meaning I cannot reload saves or reset the game, and if I lose, the run is over. I create a female avatar named Correlation with a plus luck boon, minus speed bane, and an apothecary talent. My rationale for the suboptimal class choice is to obtain additional money by using the Profiteer skill for the merchant class line. Come with me on this $20 journey through many classic maps, such as ones where you shovel snow and another where you wait for the elevator. I skipped past the first 5 chapters of Revelation, which are common to all routes, by using Branch of Fate, and this allows me to keep my level 36 Zero that I grinded 2100 turns for in Chapter 5 many months ago. In Chapter 6 of this Revelation Iron Man, the first map in this route, Corrin attempts to stop her families from fighting by murdering their military personnel. This map has a time limit of 5 turns that can easily result in instant failure. But what kind of stupid moron could possibly lose the first map of a Fire Emblem game? Certainly not me. Yeah, definitely not me. Shut up. I cleared the map by having Azura obliterate the Hoshidan commander with a flick of the wrist, and have Corrin cross the river to take out the Nori commander with the Dragonstone. Appropriately, they both have 20 HP, which is the number of dollars it takes to purchase this route. In a surprising twist, fighting both sides does not endear Corrin to anyone, and both the Norians and Hoshidans reject her. Now that Corrin is homeless, Lilith shows up for the first and last time with this route to direct Corrin to Section 8 housing, and then leaves to never have another spoken line ever again. In Chapter 7 of this Revelation Iron Man, Corrin and Azura decide to lay low by jumping off of a fucking cliff. However, instead of splattering their Viscera across the sides of the canyon, they instead enter the hidden kingdom of Vala. Now free of the pluck-contrived curse that kills you for talking about Vala without paying $20, Azura explains that the invisible secret antagonist Silent Dragon Anankos, who has Alzheimer's and is actually Corrin's true father, has been orchestrating the war between Nor and Hoshido from behind the scenes all along. Though she neglects to elaborate on why she didn't mention this crucial detail in Chapter 15 of Conquest, leaving everyone ignorant of the true threat in that route. This map has 2 branching paths that are not exclusive, and many false paths that do absolutely nothing at all, aside from wasting your time. In fact, this map's entire gimmick is more or less about tediously backtracking through the same recycled assets to get all of the stuff, which is an apt analogy for the content reuse strategy across the multiple routes of Fire Emblem Fates. Once you get near the boss, you recruit Gunter, who in this route does not die of starvation like he does in the Birthright route. His stats are shit, and he's unable to support any character, even Corrin. Suspicious, don't you think? Truly a mystery to ponder over. The chapter closes off with Azura saying that they must hurry to unite Nor and Hoshido to stop Anankos, because the entrance to Vala will soon close, even though it has been open for decades. This is surprising because the timeline of Fire Emblem Fates' world building and lore is so lacking that everyone could have been spontaneously created last Thursday with few to no differences in the story. In Chapter 8 of this Revelation Iron Man, Corrin heads to Fort Jinya to attempt to convince the Hoshidans to join them in fighting Anankos, but they are extremely hostile because Corrin is a centrist, which is worse than siding with their enemies. The map is nothing to write home about, just a smattering of irrelevant low-level grunts to bash your head against for free XP. After clearing the enemies with little to no difficulty, Saizo decides in true Hoshidan fashion to perform a kamikaze attack and blow himself up for minimal gain. However, Sakura shows up and informs him of Corrin's non-lethality and how she hasn't killed a single defender. Corrin attempts to explain that the true enemy is not King Garen, and all of the recent tragedies have actually been orchestrated false flag attacks masterminded by an ancient reptilian with dementia hidden inside a different dimension only accessible by diving into the bottomless canyon. And the proof of this is, trust me bro. Saizo rightly dismisses the schizophrenic conspiratorial nonsense and tells him to fuck off. Chapter 9 of this Revelation Iron Man reuses story elements from Birthright and map mechanics from Conquest, and the quality of the combination is somehow strictly worse than the sum of its parts. The story, where Corrin accidentally assaults Wind Tribe villagers disguised as Faceless, is identical to Chapter 8 of the Birthright route, except the dialogue is slightly modified to more unequivocally portray Corrin's violence as explicitly non-lethal. Korin tries to battlepill Fuga on her extremist alt-center ideology, but Fuga isn't base enough to recognize her plot-mandated moral superiority. Hostilities commence on a map that is identical to Chapter 20 of Conquest, except most of the enemies are unpromoted ground units, and you have basically no flyers, making the map a painful, tedious slog. Fortunately, my level 36 Azura saves me from dying of boredom by clearing the entire map for me. Severe cranial trauma and multiple macro concussions have caused sufficient brain damage to Chief Fuga to convince him to cooperate by indoctrinating him with Korin's dragon-whistling apolitical pseudo-philosophy. Chapter 10 of this Revelation Iron Man is the famous snow shoveling map where you must individually dig out 3x3 chunks of snow to find every single unit on the map so you can get all of their valuable stat boosting items. Similar to the experience of looting corpses at the mountain crash site of a passenger airplane. The story of this map is that Korin ventures to Izumo to seek Archduke Izana for advice. However, Izana is being impersonated by Zola, who uses a frost bomb to cover his escape when his ruse is discovered. The enemies are weak and you fight them one by one, but in some cases you might uncover several at once. In my painstakingly thorough charge through the snow, I accidentally do this and get Mozu and Kaze killed. After completing the map, Zola tries to hold Sakura hostage, but then gets 360 no-scoped by Leo. Izana is freed, and he informs us that the prophecy is stored in the balls. He ponders his orbs, but strains a bit too hard and suddenly dies from an aneurysm caused by oracular torsion. Alas, we could have saved him if only we didn't pay $20. In Chapter 11 of this Revelation Iron Man, Saizo sends up a smoke signal that indicates that he is in danger. Since Korin wants to die, she heads straight in. Kotaro, the daimyo of the Mokuju clan, has captured Kaguro, which strangely happens in every route. In this map, you can recruit Saizo, Orochi, and Reina if you get to them in time. However, since this was my first time playing this map, I didn't know how to do this, and Orochi gets killed on turn 1. Saizo also dies soon after, and Reina rampages across the map as a green unit. Unfortunately, the only way to recruit her is to talk to Saizo, which I cannot do because he is dead. Reina goes out in a blaze of glory as she kamikazes into the boss, and is erased from existence by an enemy archer with a 69% hit chance. In this run, I have paired Korin to Jacob to grant him the Mechanist class. Jacob is able to get the Replicate skill to clone himself much earlier than other units because he is technically a promoted unit. Fun fact, characters dual striking with themselves as the pair-up will obtain double weapon EXP. I have Jacob pair up with Jacob to take down Kotaro. In the following cutscene, all of the misunderstandings about Korin's loyalty are cleared up by acknowledging how incomprehensibly stupid and illogical the entire situation is. In Chapter 12 of this Revelation Iron Man, our protagonists take a ferry to head towards Chief to meet up with Ryoma. However, on the way, Flora uses her ice magic to freeze all of the boats in place. In this map, you are stuck on boats for 5 turns before dragon veins pop up that allow you to create walkable platforms. The enemies consist of a mishmash of unpromoted grunts and a few promoted berserkers that will push your shit in so deep that it comes out the other end. Your forces are split across several boats and are unable to reinforce one another, something that I was unaware of when I did my combat preparations. This directly results in my death counter more than doubling in size from 6 to 13. The severe damage to my roster convinces me that I should probably read the chapter objectives. Fortunately, this is a defeat boss map, which isn't too bad with a level 37 Azura with capped combat stats. Azura flies in to defeat Flora and ends the map. In the following cutscene, Flora decides not to burn herself to death like she does in Birthright because, I don't know. Flora proceeds to go into hiding with the rest of the Ice Tribe and will only come back after Chapter 23, but only if you build a level 3 Fire Orb in your inaccessible pocket dimension that has no plot relevance. In Chapter 13 of this Revelation Iron Man, the crew enters Sorkenzia only to find it in ruins. Xander and Ryoma both blame one another for the destruction of this neutral territory, but Korin tells them that it was actually caused by a false flag attack orchestrated by invisible purple ghosts, masterminded by an insane subterranean water dragon. In response, Xander and Ryoma temporarily cease hostilities and ally with the Invisible Men to defeat Korin together, presumably because Fire Emblem Fates engine does not allow for there to be multiple opposed enemy factions. This map is a defeat boss map with a small gimmick where you can use obstacles to block enemy movement which more or less gives you complete control over which enemies you have to fight. Overall, it is just an easy chapter. I slowly creep up on one of the sides and slay the commander to complete the map. Upon the battle's conclusion, the conflict continues, but Azura uses her singing to make everyone stop fighting, because the power of her song is to do whatever the writers needed to do. In Chapter 14 of this Revelation Iron Man, Xander and Leo stumble upon Garen laughing maniacally and ranting about his evil plan to destroy both Nor and Hoshido. This, of all things, somehow managed to convince them that their father has gone insane. This chapter takes place in the Port 10 of Dia, meaning that it reuses the map from Chapter 10 of Conquest, except instead of being a well-designed defense map, this is a route map featuring reinforcements as far as turn 38, turning it into a waking nightmare. This is the map design equivalent of discovering that your friend has been killed and replaced by a genetically engineered ape wearing his skin like a jumpsuit. It takes me roughly an hour to slowly crawl all over the port and defeat all of the enemies. Somewhere along the way, Tsubaki dies, but just like Tsubaki, that is of little importance. Upon the map's completion, the plot has not progressed aside from obtaining 6 characters that you probably won't use because you get Ryoma and Xander in the next few chapters anyway. In Chapter 15 of this Revelation Iron Man, we play the Rainbow Sage map, where 2 characters join us. Nyx, who is hilariously underleveled, and Shura, who is hilariously overleveled. The map is reused from its instances in Birthright and Conquest, and it's pretty much the same as it is in the other routes. There's not too much to talk about here. We just fight small groups of enemies one by one before taking on the boss, and it's a good opportunity to train your units. I recruit Nyx and find it hilarious that in this route she is perhaps one of the worst units in all of Fates, which of course means that I am morally obligated to train her. I also recruit Shura, whose entire storyline has been resolved without his knowing, so he decides to join because he has nothing else to do. Sadly, you cannot kill him for a pair of boots in this route. I take advantage of the boss's heal staff to milk as much XP as physically possible from the promoted enemies and manage to level up Nyx 8 times. I even manage to feed her the boss kill, but her personal skill counter curse activates and steals the XP, because you can only get XP if you attack, and counter curse activated and killed the boss before that happened.
You get nothing!
In the following cutscene, we finally meet the Rainbow Sage and ask him about a dragon. It turns out the Rainbow Sage is the dragon, and he imparts his power to upgrade Corrin's Yato with RGB lighting, 16 gigs of RAM, and an NVIDIA RTX 3090. However, the monetary expense of this causes him to have a fatal heart attack, and he dies. In Chapter 16 of this Revelation Iron Man, Ryoma finally comes to the correct conclusion that Corrin was right all along because he was secretly jealous of the leadership qualities of a toddler. Corrin's party advances towards the bottomless canyon to demonstrate the truth of the aquatic apparition conspiracy. On the way, they stop by the lava field, which apparently are a thing. On this map, walls of fire regularly appear and disappear to create walls that restrict movement and redirect enemies. In this map, your deployment slots are limited because you get 5 new characters, including Ryoma, who can more or less solo the game, Scarlet, who will be available for exactly 2 chapters before dying in a story cutscene, and Hinoka, Azama, and Setsuda, who all kinda suck. I spend some effort training Nyx and promote her, but don't bother routing the map full XP. Hans shows up and you kill Hans. This chapter then continues directly to Chapter 17 without a break, limiting your ability to marry Scarlet before she dies. In Chapter 17 of this Revelation Iron Man, the fight to reach the bottomless canyon continues, and we get 6 more characters. Xander, who can more or less solo the game, Leo, who sucks, Odin, who sucks, Harry, who sucks and is also a serial killer, Laszlo, who sucks, and Niles, who sucks and whose ability to capture units for recruitment is completely useless for all of the remaining story chapters, because you will exclusively fight Malite soldiers that cannot be captured. In this map, you can either go left to fight armor knights and get flanked, or go right and fight cavalry to have a much easier time. There's also enemy siege weaponry, which is more or less completely harmless. Iago shows up and you kill Iago. Ryoma proposes a truce between the 2 nations and Xander accepts. They then proceed to tell nobody about this, and then decide to jump off of a cliff. Azura congratulates Corrin on uniting both of her families, even though she is not related by blood to any of them. In Chapter 18 of this Revelation Iron Man, you have a brief opportunity to marry Scarlet, before she dies in the cutscene if you grind supports in side chapters. But unfortunately, I cannot do this because this run's Corrin is female. Corrin tells everyone to jump off of a cliff into the bottomless canyon, but cannot provide any justification. She considers sacrificing herself to the Vala curse to tell everyone the truth, but Ryoma and Xandra say that they don't care because they will blindly follow whatever the main character tells them to do, and jump off without abandon. Scarlet pins on a flower, which is a plot point for some asinine reason, and then jumps off with Corrin. In the following cutscene, she is killed by a fireball. In the map, you must activate 8 separate dragon veins to reach the boss, and while you can hypothetically split up to do this, it is easier to just group everyone into one big death ball and beat the map that way, which is what I do. At this point in the game, the enemy quality drastically increases, and if you don't have enough strong characters, you will die. But this is only a problem if you have lost all of your pre-rolls for some reason. Fortunately, all of the reinforcements and promoted enemies are great for XP gains, and I make sure to grind them all out. I fight the boss, but while she is defeated, she cannot fall here, and will make her retreat to be a boss for 2 more maps. In chapter 19 of this Revelation Iron Man, we enter Vala, which is both devoid of any history or living people. Azura gives an exposition dump, but the timeline for Vala's existence makes no sense because literally nobody knows anything about it, even the older characters who are clearly alive before it was destroyed. This map is the same as chapter 15 for Conquest, but you have more characters this time. You can either choose to rush to the escape point or clone your characters to the bottom island to fight more enemies for a lot of valuable items. Of course, I decided to get all of the stuff. Things have been going well so far without any deaths for quite a few chapters, so I figured I might as well try to snowball this advantage. I clear every enemy and even managed to feed the boss kill to Nyx, who is actually quite strong at this point. After this, we rescue Anthony, a villager who is supposedly a page of Anonkos, beginning one of the more bizarre but more importantly stupid side plots in all of Fire Emblem, and that is saying something. In chapter 20 of this Revelation Iron Man, Anthony attempts to trick Corrin's allies into falling off of a bridge, which you'd think would be very easy given their zeal of jumping off of a different bridge only 2 chapters earlier, but sadly nobody is hurt by this deception. This map has multiple moving bridges activated by dragon veins. However, functionally, this just results in you fighting individual islands of 5 or so enemies with some flyers mixed in. It doesn't require any particularly complicated strategy. I experienced technical difficulties as the stream and chat crashed multiple times. Despite this, I still cleared the whole map for maximum gains. I get all of the treasure, including the water wheel, which is an S-Reg Naginata whose primary utility rests in being sold for 5,000 gold. This is generally the case for legendary S-Rank weapons in Fates. Upon the map's completion, Camilla notes that Anthony was acting rather sus, and Xander moves to summarily execute him. However, Cora defends him on the grounds that she does not understand the relationship between cause and effect. In chapter 21 of this Revelation Iron Man, Corrin decides to trust Anthony and follows him alone into the rear entrance of Anonkos' fortress, where he tries to kill her because it was a trap. However, Corrin's positively genius, centigrade room temperature IQ master plan to account for the possibility of betrayal was to die in the ambush so her friends would know that she was led into an ambush. What the fuck? However, literally everyone has followed Corrin because she is clearly incapable of independent action without a handler. As punishment for his failure, Anonkos transforms Anthony into a faceless because he can do that for some reason. The gimmick of this map is that red tiles will cause enemies to promote and become stronger, while blue tiles will cause them to demote and become weaker. This does not affect XP gain, so there is no reason not to fight all of the enemies when they are weakened, unless you want to hurry through the map for very little material advantage. Azura's offensive capabilities have been falling off a little, so I reclass her into a berserker, improving her offenses and defenses by a significant margin. As I grind through the map, I unexpectedly lose Charlotte, who I have been training to give Nyx the fighter class with the HP +5 skill, and soon after I also lose Nyx to a master ninja who will double her unexpectedly. The loss of the stupid meme character that I try to build a narrative around for the sake of this video makes me very angry, and I decide to hurry and get the map over with. I have Jacob kill the boss to end the map. In the following cutscene, everyone but Takumi and Hinoka reaffirms their faith in Corrin. The conclusion and thesis statement of this 3-chapter subplot is that Corrin is too trusting and naive, but that's a good thing because she is the protagonist and is perfect and can do no wrong. Please clap. In chapter 22 of this Revelation Iron Man, the gang enters a mysterious forest that has no plot significance for what I believe is a filler chapter. Judging from the recycled tile set for the Ninja Forest map, the relatively small amount of dialogue, and the fact that Anonkos is using his control of the dead to use Azura's dead mother as a reoccurring boss. The gimmick of this map is that it is covered in dense forest, or as the game calls it, thick wood that ground units cannot cross. You can burn these down using dragon veins to walk across these previously inaccessible areas. There is roughly 15,000 gold worth of useless items that you can get if you want all of the treasure, but at this point you don't really need that much money if you're depending on characters like Ryoma and Xander who have excellent personal weapons. You can instead just walk around, defeat the boss, and seize. Upon defeating Arate for the second time, she retreats out of this filler chapter so we can fight her again for the third time next chapter. I don't know about you, but I, for one, am on the edge of my seat anticipating what will happen next in this riveting story. In chapter 23 of this Revelation Iron Man, we fight Arate, but this time it's for real. Anyway, the chapter begins with Ryoma suggesting that the killer of Scarlet might perhaps be among us, and with surprising comedic timing, Arate sicks Scarlet at you like some kind of necromantic Pokemon, and you kill her without much fuss. This map's gimmick is a bunch of moving platforms that you have to inflict upon yourself to reach the next small group of isolated enemies. As long as you're strong enough to fight 5 or so bulky Paralog units, you're probably fine. Since I've had enough of Revelation's bullshit, I decided to hurry towards the boss to lessen my suffering. I clear the middle island and then go upwards to beat the map. As it turns out, Revelation is kind of easy. We defeat Arate for the third and final time, but simultaneously begin a new series of 3 where your characters kill their beloved parental figures, cradling them in their arms as Anonkos' control fades away for their final moments, allowing for a brief heartfelt conversation where the parent comments on how much their child has grown and how proud of them they are before they dissolve into bubbles. But only Azura, Corrin, and Hoshido royals get this privilege. The Norian royals get like 1 scene and 6 lines of dialogue total in chapter 27, and that's it. In chapter 24 of this Revelation Iron Man, Corrin meets an apparition of her dead mother, Makoto, who warns her about a maze of deadly traps. This map has 2 gimmicks. The first is an option to stealth your way through the chapter for bonus rewards, and avoid most of the combat by staying outside of the enemy unit's movement range. This is pretty much only possible if you use only 1 or 2 units, and extensively look up walkthroughs. If you mess up, you will pretty much die instantly, so it is unsuitable for Iron Man runs. The second gimmick are choices between red and blue doors. The correct door is safe, but the incorrect ones will be trapped. The idea is that you need to decide if you trust Makoto's advice, but there is 0 logic behind this decision because you're given 0 actual information. The correct door is never changed, so if you have ever played this map before or glanced briefly at the wiki, the gimmick is ruined. Just pick the blue door every time. Since I'm not brave or stupid enough to try the solo stealth route on a fucking Iron Man playthrough, I just decided to kill my way through instead. This genius plan goes well until it doesn't. I make the grievous mistake of allowing more than 0 enemies to live to enemy phase, and am punished for this drastic error when an enemy swordmaster attacks and kills Camilla with a 6% crit. I am more confused than anything else because I expected at least to die instead. I managed to continue without much fuss, but at the end, the flood of powerful reinforcements nearly gets Jacob killed, but he gets bailed out by an unexpected shield gauge. I defeat Makoto and end the map. Corrin and the Hoshido royals then cradle Makoto in their arms as Anonkos' control fades for her final moments, allowing for a brief heartfelt conversation where Makoto comments on how much everyone has grown and how proud of them she is before she dissolves into bubbles. Corrin also discovers that she is Violet royalty, but that has more significance for hypothetical incest jokes than the actual story. In chapter 25 of this Revelation Iron Man, we finally get to play the legendary elevator map, which is the pinnacle of all those stupid fucking transportation gimmicks that are so common in Revelation. The opening cutscene features Gunter attempting to sow discord by nearly killing Corrin and blaming it on a traitor instead of actually just killing her. Suddenly, the hooded figure from chapter 5 appears, and surprise surprise, it's Sumaragi. the former Hoshidan king who is now evil under the control of a Nunkos and holding the evil bomb sword that he used to kill his wife. The objective of this chapter is to run all over the place and activate 3 dragon veins to reach the boss. While this elevator map is possibly one of the more tedious variations of the transportation map gimmick, this map actually poses a significant challenge because the enemies are now very strong, and you'll be ambushed at choke points when trying to leave the elevator. The elevator also doesn't move if someone's occupying the door, so you can't really use it to run away. I am forced to use my weaker units as bait to protect my more useful characters, and this proves to be one of the bloodiest chapters yet. As I go towards the bottom dragon vein, I sacrifice Kaden as bait to protect my other units, and Azama suffers a similar fate. I get swarmed by reinforcements as I go for the upper dragon vein, and Azura narrowly avoids death with a coin flip dodge. Immediately after, however, Fugo, who I recruited off screen, is killed. As I approach the final room to defeat Sumaragi, I push in with Maruka as tactical ablative armor to divert one enemy attack, but at the same time, Shura is one-shot by an enemy sniper. Sumaragi attacks Ryoma and triggers Astra, but the lobster lord narrowly avoids death when his father misses twice and triggers one shield gauge. Ryoma dodges death again when an enemy Great Monk attacks and misses. Having successfully not been punished for my needlessly reckless play, I attack Sumaragi with Jacob and kill him with Azura. Korn and the Hoshido royals then cradle Sumaragi in their arms as Anankos' control fades for his final moments, allowing for a brief heartfelt conversation where Sumaragi comments on how much everyone has grown and how proud of them he is before he dissolves into bubbles. Korn also discovers that she is not biologically related to any of the Hoshidan siblings, which has more significance for hypothetical incest jokes in the actual story. Before I take on the final few maps in this Revelation Iron Man, I decided to do Paralog Chapters to get some high-level child units. I recruit Dwyer, who is Jacob's and Corin's son. Like every other parent, Jacob has yeeted his child into an ultra dimension, but unfortunately for Dwyer, merely living outside of time and space does not protect him from the current state of the housing market. Dwyer has to live with 5 roommates in a 2-bed, 2-bath apartment despite having a full-time job just like every other millennial. Dwyer's Paralog is famous for being extremely easy to beat, as all you need to do is open the door to the left and defeat the boss. I use Niles as a door key, and just like all other door keys, he disappears upon being used. I then kill the boss to beat the map, giving Azura her first level up as a berserker and the HP plus 5 skill. Dwyer inherits Replicate from Jacob, so he can clone himself to potentially double up on the inspiration skill, which grants a damage and defense buff to nearby allies. I only find out months later that multiple copies of inspiration, in fact, do not stack. The second and last Paralog I do in this Revelation Iron Man is Kana's Paralog, who is Jacob's and Corin's other son. Kana's Paralog is a great source of valuable XP and also is a fantastic opportunity to accidentally get your characters killed. I immediately make a mistake on turn 1 and activate the Dragon Vein, cutting Effie off from my forces and leaving her trapped in enemy range. Effie's death not only recruits her to the skeleton war, but also puts everyone else in peril. The way this map works is that for each of the first couple of turns, one group of roughly 4 enemies will attack, while the rest will wait for their turn. If you can clear each group right when they come in, you can defeat them all one by one. However, Effie's unfortunate positioning lured the upper right archers into attacking me early. Since I am now unable to clear the groups cleanly, I am forced to scramble into a retreat, snowballing the situation as more and more enemies attack. Kana, the neutral unit, is killed, but fortunately that doesn't actually matter. I desperately fight on razor-thin margins but manage to puzzle my way out of the snafu without further losses. And once the bosses Lloyd and Llewellyn arrive, I defeat them immediately, ending the map before further reinforcements show up. Upon this map's completion, we recruit Kana and also Flora, who has arrived because she has sensed that it is past chapter 23 and that I have built a level 3 fire orb in my inaccessible pocket dimension that has no plot relevance. While I still have 2 more Paralogs available, Shigure and Valoria's, I decide not to do them because the risk of further losses for relatively minimal gain is simply not worth it. And you know me, I only do things with a good cost-to-benefit ratio. In chapter 26 of this Revelation Iron Man, I intentionally kill off characters for 0 benefit. The opening cutscene begins with everyone bursting into the throne room of Vala, where they expect a climactic confrontation with Anonkos, only to find nobody at all. Suddenly, everyone is attacked with fire magic, except Azura and Corrin, and Gunter uses this as grounds to accuse him of being the traitors among us. He says that Corrin has lured everyone into Vala just to kill them all in one place, which does not even have the beginnings of making any sort of sense. The other characters are temporarily made much stupider and act as if this is somehow convincing. This contrivance occurs in order to add tension and to make Corrin look better when she figures out the murder non-mystery. Corrin uses the flower that Scarlet pinned on herself in chapter 18 as evidence to prove that Gunter is actually the evil one in an argument that still fundamentally ends up being no you. Gunter admits to the crime and has an Ace Attorney villain breakdown, ranting and raving about how much he loves being evil. This map is pretty easy. The boss is Gunter, who is really weak. There's also a map gimmick where Azura and Corrin obtain an aura that heals and provides 40 avoid to nearby allies, basically making everyone invincible. This map is full of valuable treasure that I will not bother obtaining, because there are only 2 maps left in this game. I can hypothetically go and end the map by defeating Gunter quickly, but I decided to take some time and do the good old traditional Excellium endgame experience by not having any characters left by the end of the game. Hinoka, Perry, Leo, Benny, Laszlo, and Silas all died to meet the quota. I send Jacob to kill the boss, but things go awry. Before nothing bad happens anyway, and I kill Gunter. In the following cutscene, Gunter breaks free of Anonkos' mind control by killing himself. But there were healers on hand, so the dramatic moment ended up being for nothing. Corrin forgives Gunter for all of his misdeeds because it is all Anonkos' fault, and allows him to come back on board. As it turns out, the only reason Gunter was kind to Corrin was to get revenge on King Garen, who killed his wife and kids, and who will absolutely have more than 5 lines of dialogue before he is unceremoniously killed in a cutscene. In chapter 27 of the Revelation Iron Man, we finally meet Anonkos, who is a masked lunatic that rants about his hatred for humanity, drawing some uncomfortable parallels that I refuse to expound upon. Corrin attacks with the Alpha Yato, but it does 0 damage because she is really weak. In retaliation, Anonkos blasts Xander, Ryoma, and Azura for an unspecified but non-lethal amount of damage, before Corrin declares that she needs more power. Suddenly, the divine weapons of the Norin and Hoshidan royals glow, granting the Yato their energy even though their respective characters have not gone through their character arcs in this route. Leo and Takumi have not overcome their inferiority complexes. Xander has not overcome his daddy issues, and Ryoma has not gutted himself like a fish. Regardless, Corrin's weapon has been upgraded into the Omega Yato, which will deal additional damage to Anonkos compared to other weaponry. But I won't use it because Corrin is horrendously underleveled and useless in any combat situation. This map is easy to beat in 1 turn. I simply use rescue stabs to teleport characters near Anonkos and defeat him. I send in Jacob, who lands 3 strikes with the Brave Lance, and then Azura, who defeats Anonkos once and for all. Just kidding! Anonkos declares that he needs more power, and summons Garen, who has exactly 5 lines of meaningless dialogue before Anonkos eats him in a cutscene. The Norian royals only get 6 lines regarding this, 2 of which are about their surprise at his appearance, and 4 of which are their shocked reactions to their father being bored by a geriatric cave lizard. In the final chapter of this Revelation Iron Man, we first need to watch an unbearably long cutscene. Every character except Corrin gives up all hope, specifically so Corrin can look good by giving a rousing speech. In this chapter, you must defeat the Silent Dragon by hitting his hands, and then his head, and then finally his balls. His singular one ball, he lost his other one in the war. It is well known that for dragons, their true power is stored in the balls. Reinforcements trickle in at the rate of 2 enemies per turn, but they are relatively trivial to deal with in most normal circumstances. I find that I have failed my side objective of killing off all of my characters, as the final map has a lower deployment limit than the previous chapter, forcing me to leave some living characters on the bench. Regardless, I kill off Setsuna, Elise, Arthur, Keaton, Xander, Felicia, Kana, Ryoma, Flora, and Dwyer, leaving only Azura and Jacob left alive, not to mention Kagero, Selena, and Odin, who are left on the bench. My inability to achieve the greater victory troubles me. Upon reaching Anonkos' final form, I recognize that Korra can actually deal some damage at a low hit rate at the risk of being killed in retaliation. I consult chat and decide whether or not it will be fun to risk the entire run on a coin flip. Chat agrees and I oblige. I send in Corrin, who has not seen combat for half the game, to attack Anonkos. She misses and is obliterated by the counterattack. Game over. The end. Thanks for watching. This concludes my first Iron Man playthrough of Fire Emblem Fates Revelation. If you were disappointed by the final chapter being cut short, then oh boy, I think you'd be even more disappointed if you read the actual story. I'll use some footage from a later playthrough, but if you must know, all that happens afterwards is that, well, Anonkos dies with no further dialogue, everyone says congratulations, and Corrin is crowned the new ruler of Vala, a country devoid of any living subjects, infrastructure, or government, calling into question what being king or queen even means. Xander and Ryoma declare a vow of peace, and that's that. Ho hum, everyone lives happily ever after. The end. This playthrough may have ended in failure, but I'll try again. I will restart the game, this time as a Kill My Unit challenge run, where viewers can kill off my characters live on stream by super chatting. I have high hopes for this. I had a relatively easy time going through Revelation the first time around, and I think the additional restrictions will add some spice. Anyway, if you like this series, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I put a lot of work into my videos, so if you want to support my future projects, consider becoming a YouTube member, contributing to my Patreon, or participating in my streams. Thanks for watching, and see you all in the next one.